which I wanted to share actually somewhat of my background, because it's part of what this awakening process, how the awakening process began for me. And I think it actually, if there was a date that I could put on it, it would be around 1989. But it's a process that's been, I think, unfolding since I was born, because I think this particular lifetime for all of us is a lifetime that we've come in specifically with the desire to awaken. I mean, there's humans everywhere that's what's happening with them. But 1989 was a very pivotal year for me because, well, basically growing up, I didn't have any confidence whatsoever. I mean, I was one of those kids on the playground where everybody would pick on, beat up on. That was me. And I just allow it because I didn't have any confidence, and so I didn't know that I actually had a part of me that could stand up and really, stand up for myself. I just was stuck in this belief that I'm worthless and no good. So that's the game that I chose to play then. So by the time I got out of high school, I really didn't want to go to college. I mean, I didn't have any confidence anyway that I was anything I could study out there. And within 3 years after college, I found myself getting swallowed up into a religious organization. It was called Unification Church. It was founded by Sun Myung Moon was his name. He was a Korean evangelist of sorts. But he basically taught that he was the second coming of Christ, and I bought into it, whole hog, because it was right up my alley. I mean, fantastic. I've always wanted to serve Christ anyway. I mean, I was brought up as a Catholic, and this whole concept of, Jesus and being my Savior and what have you, it was a wonderful thing to think that I now had a literal physical Savior that I could serve. So here I was. Now suddenly I had a means to become confident. Not really, but some part of me started becoming confident enough that I was thrown into the leadership position and found myself responsible for varying situations. A group of 10 members, and I was called a state leader. Well, that had its perks. I had a chance to go to New York once a month and be in conference with Moon as one of his 50 state leaders. Sometimes international leaders would come in. I mean, we're talking millions of people around the world that were following this guy, all accepting that he was their Savior. Well, along with that lifestyle was a great deal of loathing, which again was right up my alley because I just didn't think I was worth it, you see. So when you're taught by religion that you're not worthy, then you have this idea that you have to somehow make yourself worthy. So in Catholicism, the idea is to do penance. Well, penance usually is very simple, but there are very ascetic, intense orders of Christianity where they do things like whip themselves and so on. If you saw the Da Vinci Code, something like that. That's what I did that. I did that as a Moonie. It wasn't being told to do me, but some part of me didn't feel worthy enough and I would whip myself. But the general stuff that was being encouraged was fasting. I'd take cold showers. Be the dead of winter in intense snowy climate, and I'd be taking 21-minute cold shower in the morning. Turn the cold water on, if you can imagine that. Didn't really understand why I was walking around with my entire body knotted up, where I felt tight and tense all the time. Well, I was taking cold showers. A lot of different ways. The lifestyle itself, no time to sleep, and Moon called it the emergency time period. He said we have just so long before God needs us to save the world. And so especially in my 20s, I sacrificed sleep, probably slept maximum 4 hours, some nights less, and I was up and on the run. Prided myself in a way of being the standard of the exemplary member who is showing how to live by doing all of these basically loathing things to myself. And the reason I was doing it actually was because I was hoping that would, in the eyes of God, make me worthy to get into that elusive heaven that one day later when I, go die and you hope you get there, I thought that Moon would be my sort of go-between, and that when I get there, he'll be the defense lawyer, so to speak, and defend me for all of those amazing sacrifices that I'd done, and find a way to convince God that I was worth getting into those pearly gates. This is the mentality that I was living with. No, actually, it's kind of a normal mentality. I mean, that's those that are in religion and very much into religion understand this mentality. And so that's what I was in. So 1989, I found myself in a situation in which there was some subtle questioning of this messianic role of Moon, and was it really right for me? Not so much consciously, but I could tell that there was something going on inside of me. And by the time 1991 rolled around, I entered into a seminary that he founded, Unification Theological Seminary, which is upstate New York. It was in a graduate degree in religious education, so we had various professors from various religious backgrounds, Catholic priest, Jewish rabbi, Methodist minister, and so forth, all there teaching, and you know, it became accredited eventually by the state of New York, and I got a degree there. And that's when I started really questioning seriously, because as I was studying the depths of Christianity, I realized we've been making it up as we go along. It's just a lot of interesting ideas that we've come out of the mind, manufactured out of the mind, in order to support this process of being human and experiencing humanity, trying to understand what this is all about. Again, if you're separated from that joyful, divine part of you, which is really the only real thing that there is, but you're separated from that and you're not experiencing that on a regular basis, the mind is capable of manufacturing just about anything. And so Christianity is just one idea. I mean, there's so many different ideas out there, from Buddhism to the Muslims to the Judaism and to, oh gosh, there's hundreds of varying religious views. And even within each one of those major sects, there's so many different perceptions, because the mind manufactures what is going to work for the personal individual. And this is just the game that we chose to play. So by the time 1993-4 came along, and I graduated from the seminary, there was a tradition that the seminary class itself would be sent someplace by Moon, that would become your mission. Well, he sent my class to Russia. So I found myself in the middle of Russia, and this was at a time when communism had just fallen. Moon had convinced the Minister of Education there to let us in. They weren't letting in the Mormons, the Jehovah's Witnesses, the various ones that go out and do a lot of missionary work. They weren't letting them in, but they let Moon in because he had created this sort of watered-down version of his teaching that sort of embraced a lot of the various religions. And anyway, we took that and we were teaching people in Russia through a translator. And it was kind of a high time, but there was some part of me that knew that I just didn't want to continue that. So I chose to go back, leaving my position, and I went back to my hometown, which was Lincoln, Nebraska, and entered journalism school, got a degree in broadcast journalism. Now, the thing that was different about this, I hadn't really left Moon as my savior yet, but I had severed myself from that lifeline. As a Catholic, the lifeline was the Pope, the Cardinal, the Bishop, the priest, and then you're that lay person who, you know, you sort of have this chain of command, so to speak. Well, in Moon's organization, it was the same. He had these 36 elder Korean couples that are around him, and then below that, depending on your responsibility, you might have 1 to 5 to however many central figures that they were called, getting down to you. And as a leader, I actually had the good fortune of having Moon to be my direct leader, you see. And when I got sent to the seminary, the person who he had appointed to be responsible in Russia had become my central figure. For me to go back to my hometown, totally against that guy's direction, I was disobeying it. So it was a very emotionally distraught time for me, because I was actually separating from the belief system that had given me that secure, safe place. It's why I got involved in it in the first place. So I wasn't ready yet to give up Moon as my savior, but I had been willing to deviate, and that was heavy. Oh man, I had all kinds of bipolar symptoms. I mean, very intense. Going through school, while I was trying to, you know, go through school with all these emotions, it was a real challenge. Then I ended up as a TV reporter. Really, I couldn't take it. It was too much. And before you know it, I ended up working graveyard security. That's all I really felt that I could do. It was a very heavy, intense time. It was the beginning. By 1998, I had reached this point which I'd had enough. There were some things going on in Moon's family. His eldest son, who was supposed to take over the throne whenever he died, gets arrested for drunk driving, for example, and his wife decide to take their 4 young kids and smuggle them out of the mansion that they were living in. And then she writes this book, and she's traveling around the country, appearing on all these major shows like Good Morning America and so on, telling about her book and about her loss of faith in Moon. And this is the wife of Moon's eldest son. So all of this is going on, and I'm like, so it's causing a lot of questioning. And basically by 1998, I said, you know what, I don't have anything to do with this. Well, you know, I had to sort of fill in the void, so I started reading a lot of spiritual-oriented books, and I'd swallow up anything I could get my hands on. But the point is that I started shifting my perception. And that actually helped me to understand I really am the creator. Because while I was a Moon follower, Moon would come to me in dreams and he would guide me. You know, literally he was my savior because I wanted him to be my savior. But when I really had the courage to separate from that and pull away, he no longer appeared in my... In fact, he got to the point where it was totally irrelevant. Today, if we talk about Moon, I can laugh. I can have a good laugh, and it means nothing, literally nothing. There's no emotional attachment, nothing. So I created a new reality for myself since then. And now I'm realizing that I can pretty much create anything I want as I choose consciously. You see, it's a conscious thing.